Hello, this is Susan at Shipwreck Beads. We are going to make a multi-strand necklace, and really the biggest thing that I wanted to show you is how to reduce this 4 lines down into just 2 to make the top of the necklace. You don't need to bring all 4 up because of course that'd make it really stiff on the top of it, and you want it to lay nicely and comfortably on your neck. I've made 2 different versions here. You've got this really big chunky one that I made specifically for one dress that needed to have something big and wow on it, but I do realize not everybody needs big chunky jewelry, and so if you like something a little bit finer, this one is made out of smaller beads. It is all one color rather than multicolor. You can really do whatever you want to with this. The first one I made was in red, white, and turquoise, so you can really informal it down and have it be just a great thing to wear with jeans, or you can really make it wow and wear it with this one was made for a gown. Actually, I was going to go to an inaugural ball, and so this is the piece I made to go with that dress. So isn't that the funnest thing about making your own jewelry, is that you can make something specifically to the dress. I often will make a piece and then go find something that works with it, but in this case it was just the opposite. It was this really beautiful dress and it needed something just really big and wow, and so that's what this one did for me. It takes up that whole neckline, really gives you a huge bunch of color. The biggest challenge with a multi-strand like this is how to reduce it so you get a nice curve without a wave. You shouldn't get any kind of wave. This should lay flat against your skin and just be beautiful and comfortable to wear, which is what this guy is and what we're going to show you how to do. And then with the smaller version, really just the same thing. You're watching the tension. You are making sure that the pieces are coming together here, so again you don't get that weird wave tension thing. So with a piece like this, we're going to start in the center and make it first, and then we'll come around and come up to the ends and then finish it and put our toggle clasp on. I really like a toggle clasp with something like this. It's got so much going on. There is just so much of my personality in something like this that I really like being able to use a decorative clasp. It just gives it even that much more personalization to it, so I really dig that. I am allergic to metal, so I find that with pewter clasp I do really great with. It doesn't break me out, so I'm a huge fan of these Tierra Cast toggle clasps. I'm using seed beads rather than metal rounds. If you are not allergic, then feel free to change those out. There is no reason not to if that's what you have instead. But if you've watched any of these videos, you know I pretty much throw seed beads into everything. That's what allows me to mimic metals, so I can wear it comfortably. Now with something like this, it was going to be a very short ceremony, that kind of thing. I could get away with wearing it for an hour and then it'll go back into my jewelry box and live there until I get to go to something else that formal. So so I did put metal in this one. That is certainly the exception to the rule, I guess you can say. So super fun. This is what we're going to make, a multi-strand with lots of dangles and lots of just a big punch of color. Doesn't matter what you make it with. This one happens to be with rounds, ovals. I've got some bicones in here, and here's my ovals showing up again, the tiny little rounds that are on the dangles, and then our metal rounds. And in this case I did use another round as well, and then you've got some really fun spacers happening. Now these are called multi-hold spacers. This has 5 in it, so I could get my 4 lines of beads and then my bottom hole or eye is for my dangle. You can see these come in different styles. This one is really big and chunky to go with my big beads, and then we've got a much finer version that for the finer type of beads. So depending on where your personality is and what kind of stuff you like to wear, you can really make it match you. If you don't care for quite as many lines as this has, of course you can go smaller. They make these spacer bars in multi different types. This one happens to be a 5. These two here, you can get them in 3, makes it much shorter. Like you have here. The holes are on the back though, so it's totally covering up where I'm putting the spacer, so all you see is the really lovely design on it. You can get them just plain bars, so you really don't see them. You see it just keeps your lines separate, but in this case it really is part of the design of the necklace itself, so I wanted to have that big punch of metal in it and be able to see it, and if I'm going to see it, it better be decorative. So that's what we have going on here. These are just in the metal line. These are zinc alloy. So for me to be able to wear it, I turn it over and put a light coat of clear nail polish on them. So the part against my skin isn't really being touched by the metal itself. If you don't have metal allergies, well then that's just no worry for you. All kinds of designs you can pick from. Tierra Cast has them as well. Remember I said I've got that in both of these Clasp are Tierra Cast. So if you are allergic to metal, really look into pewter, because it's amazing stuff. It really allows you to get fancy with some clasps. I just noticed that's completely out of the picture. I get to get fancy with my clasp and still be able to stand to wear them. So to be able to make this, we have 11 dangles. I'm going to move this one out of the way because the other one that we're going to use is using the same connectors or spacer bars, I'm sorry. So the first thing we're going to do is put the dangle on the spacer bar. So when you are deciding what beads you're going to use, you of course pick out your beads first, then you know what size spacer bar to get and how much room you need in between there, and then kind of lay it out as far as how you want to see the beads layered, and then what you want your dangle to look like. You want to put the dangles on the spacer bars first before you incorporate them into the necklace. It's so much easier. You've got all the room in the world to be messing with these tiny little parts and getting them onto the spacer bars instead of on the piece itself. And now you're lifting it up, you're trying to figure out how to get in there, you're doing the wrap, and it's so much easier to do it first. So take my advice on that one. I've done it both ways, and really it's so much easier if you get the dangle on first. So in this case we've got 11 of them. And so ours that we're going to make is going to be in pearls rather than in faceted glass. I've got 4s, 6s, and 8s on this one, and we're going to do the same thing on the other, but rather than using faceted glass, we're going to use glass pearls. Now I really like glass pearls because they come in so many colors. They feel good on, they warm up, they're so soft to the touch, they just feel great, and they look fantastic. So we're going to use pearls on the one that we're going to make. Again, that's 4, 6s, and 8s. You'll need all 3 sizes, and then of course I've got seed beads going on. If these are a size 11, what we call a true cut. So I don't know that it's really showing up on this video, but there's a cut on every seed bead that really gives it a nice sparkle when you're wearing it. It's not over the top like the 3-cut ones that really go more into a cylinder shape and have a lot more sparkle, but it just gives it a little bit of, here's really fun ones going on, really just that really subtle kind of sparkle, and really makes this piece stand out. it's super fun to wear, y'all. So you'll definitely want to experiment using different materials and different sizes of beads. And then once we get to our end of the droppy spacers, then we're going to take all 4 of our lines, move them into 2, and then that's what we'll use to bead up the end and attach our clasp. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to move that one out of the way and start getting our supplies ready. So as I said, we're going to be using glass pearls, and I went with a purple and green design on this one. It's going to be just because that's what I happen to be wearing when I was choosing the beads for this project. You know how you kind of always look at what you're wearing, and that's kind of the color scheme you go with for the day. I do that all the time. Unfortunately, I end up with lots of green, so don't be surprised to see lots of green in my stuff. So anyway, we've got our pearls. I've got the size 4s, 6s, and 8s. This is going to have, like this one is the 2 lines of 6s, and then, 2 lines of 4s, then the 6, and then the 8s are on our drops. So I've already put together the majority of the drops, but that's why you're seeing these green little guys, and then we get bigger with the purple. Since I've already pretty much put the large ones together, you know, once you see how to put one together, you really don't need to see me make that 10 more times. So I've already done that. We have pretty much are done with the 8s, so I'm just going to set these aside, and we'll use them once we get to that finishing wrap against the back of the neck. And then we sure need our spacers. So I've got 2 different sizes here. These are out of the metal spacers that they're the base is brass, so again, they're comfortable for me to wear. You know, it's always going to be about me. So they're comfortable for me to wear. I don't break out with these like I do with zinc alloy, so I won't have to paint those with clear nail polish. And then I've got my 2-inch head pins. That's what I make my dangles with. 2-inch head pin is pretty much the pin that I reach for all the time, unless I'm making something exceptionally long, and then I'll need a 3 or 4-inch, or I'll just cut it off my wire spool. In this case, I really don't want to have like little spirals or anything hanging off of here that might nick my skin, so I'm just going to use a flat head to make the dangle that's going to go onto my spacer bar. Now the spacer bars again are just out of our metal zinc alloy mix, but it has the holes on the side, so my wire is going to go right through there, but the part that you're going to see is just this beautiful front that has like a nice little design on it. Like I said, these ones are already done. You need a total of 11, and so there's 10, and then this one we'll put together. You've got your head pin, and of course your smallest pearl first. Really, it's however you want this to look. So I'm going to refer to the beads that I'm using, but please know, just by the 2 examples that I showed you, you can really change these out and make it so unique to you and your color schemes, or what particular dress you need to wear it with. So here's my seed beads. Now I'm using 11s here because I really like that that very small cut. I think probably a size 10 or an 8 would have fit the size of my beads that I'm using a little bit better, but I went with sparkle instead of what what I thought laid best together. And so we just need, here we go, I was looking for the other chain nose. So on the dangles, I do make these a wrapped eye. I don't want them to get cut or caught on something and possibly open up like a jump ring could. So, or just a plain eye. I think of plain eyes as jump rings because it has that one opening. So I'm going to make a wrapped eye. So with my tail still sticking out, let me get that through my spacer bar. And these are cool because the design isn't really top or bottom, or so I don't have to worry about making sure I'm going through the right end. It's just an easy design to work with. And there we go. So I've got it pop through the eye. Let me just get that wrapped. Now you could certainly use a ball end head pin if that's what you have on hand instead of the flathead. I happen to always have the 2-inch flathead, so that's what we're using today. But just note, you can always change this stuff out depending on what you have or what you prefer to see. A little ball end would be adorable on the end of this, and just give it that little bit extra. And there we go. So there we have our our 11 spacers. Now it's an odd number because you've got one that's going to go directly in the center, and that kind of keeps your piece hanging correctly. You know, don't you hate it when your necklace moves on you, so your middle starts hanging out over here or over here? Well, having that center dangle kind of takes that away. I don't have to put a weight on the back to keep it in place. So there we go. We've got all of our dangles done. Now we're going to cut our cable. I've got the Beadalon 19 strand 0.012. That's the diameter of the wire. That means it's thin. It's not the thinnest. 0.010 is the thinnest, but a 0.012 is still thin enough it's going to get through my pearls, and that's the biggest concern. Pearls have the smallest hole, and when it comes to glass pearls, they often have that pearl finish will kind of cover up the hole a little bit. So not only is it extra small, but you've got that going on as well. So just keep that in mind. Now this project ends up to be about 20 inches long. So know if you want yours to be longer, you want to add more dangles and then some more to the back. That'll make it longer for you. If you want it shorter, you can decrease the dangles. Always do it in twos. So if you're going to add or decrease, you need to do it in twos to keep that uneven number going. And then if you want to measure your cable from there. Now mine ends up to be about 20 inches. That's where it rests best on me. So I like to have an extra 4 inches for the tails, so I'm going to cut 4 lines of 24 inches of cable. So let's go ahead and get that done. And then I always manage to overcut it anyway, so it's probably ends up, instead of 24, it's probably 26 or something like that. But it does make it easier if you've got plenty of extra room. So I really don't stint on cutting extra cord. And then with this piece, we are going to start in the center and build our sides around it, and then we will end those lines and make that simple ending to it for the back of the neck. It's got a little loop happening here, and I sure don't want to pull that and get a kink. So there we go. We'll just pull it down. And here's 3. And get my 4th one in. Now you certainly could use a 7-strand for this project. These beads just really aren't all that heavy. I pretty much always have this size of cable on hand. I buy it by the 100-foot spool. No sense going with 30, for heaven's sakes. So I've always got this one on hand, as well as 7-strand. And usually if I'm doing something really heavy, if I was making this out of stone, then rather than even 19-strand, I might use 2 strands of the 7-strand cord, just to make it that much stronger. So there we go. There's our cord. We're going to need some crimp tubes, and really for this one we need a bunch. The way this is ended, we're going to be hiding crimps here and I'm sorry, in here, and then in here, and then at the end of our toggle. And that's what is going to allow us to see how you don't see any of them, but that's what allows us to crimp it here and then cut the lines, so I've only got 2 running up instead of all 4, and that's what keeps this really flexible and comfortable to wear. So we'll get those out when we're ready for them. And then I've got spacers here. And again, these are brass spacers with a silver coat on them. They're just really plain. I like to see more of the beads rather than the spacers. If you really like spacers, go with something more like a daisy spacer or something like that, that has way more design to it. And where's the big guys? Here we go. So I've got tiny spacers for the tiny beads and big spacers for the big beads, is how that worked out. So there we go, get those handy and we're ready to go. And then we're going to use lots of our seed beads. Whoops, that guy got left over there. Because that's going to be the inside line that really keeps the shape of our piece. And so we do need a lot. It'll be the length of that. Let's see if I can get these over here. There we go. So I pretty much just keep them on the hank, depending on what I'm doing. If I'm going to be picking up lots of seed beads at once, then I can leave it on the string and then just run my cord or my needle up the string and pull off a bunch of beads at once. In this case, I'm not really using all that many at one time because these sections are separated. So I'm going to take them off the string. If you've never used seed beads, really I use them a lot. This is my answer to how do I get that metallic look without the feel of metal on my skin. And so I really use a lot of seed beads. I pretty much have silver because I pretty much everything I make for me is going to be in silver instead of gold. So I've got them in 6, 8, 10, 11, and then like I said, the 11 true cuts. And I really save the true cuts for when I'm making something super fancy and I need that extra hit of sparkle, which is what I consider this necklace. This is not something that I wear every day, but so I like it to just feel extra special, and so I go with the true cuts. Now, if you don't normally use seed beads in your projects, they come in hanks like this, so you're getting several strands at once, and there you go. Now you can see that sparkle on these guys. It's from that single cut. But this is a size 11 true cut and in silver. And then the other ones that I have, of course, are just without that cut on them. But they all come in hanks. You just pull one string out. There's a knot underneath this tag. Pull one string out, and then you can just have a little pile of them here as you need them and can add to it. And then I just tie a knot in it to keep them in their place. So here we go. Let's get some of these beads going. These ones have already been cut off to be able to make the dangle, but I'm going to move them more into an area that I can see them and get at them. So let me just bring those down. And then we need our larger bead for the bottom row. So this will be my first row, my second and third, and then here's my size 6 pearls. Size 6 meaning that they are 6 millimeters in my contrasting color. And really remember the samples, you can go all the same shade, you can go multicolor. The first one I made was in 3 main colors, and then we threw some silver into that too. There is just an endless variety of what you can do with this design and have it either just be funky and fun or super elegant. There's just so many possibilities. So here we go. There's all my dangles. Here's my 8s ready to go. And so I'll just pull one dangle out. Now, if you like to have a big statement piece right in the middle, you might do something extra with this center one. I like it to just blend in with the rest, so I don't do that, but gosh, feel free to mess with this design as much as you like. So I'm going to pick up one of my cores. And don't let me forget this, the bead stoppers. These are worth their weight in gold, y'all. They will keep your lines from getting tangled up. If you stand up really quick and your piece is stuck to you, you're not going to lose all your beads on your floor. I'm just straightening up these ends. You're not going to lose all the beads on the floor. This will keep them in place. They are just fabulous. Okay, so now I've got my 4 lines, and we're going to start by working our way up to the left, and then we'll stop, work our way to the right, and then we'll put those ends on. So let's come through that first hole, because this is our first line, and then I'm going to use 18 seed beads. And then after the first one, I'm going to actually check and make sure my spacing is correct, because every time you make this, your size 4s or 6s might be slightly different. Often it's because of the finish that they put on. It can make it slightly bigger, slightly smaller, but they can go just a little bit, and you can see a size 11 seed bead is so tiny. We're only talking like a 2 millimeter round. So if you want to use rounds instead, you want to go with a 2 or 3 millimeter, something smaller than your 4 millimeter second and third line. So what is that? That's 5. Okay, so that's 18, and then we'll test it for sizing here in just a minute. So here's my second line, and have it go through the spacer bar. And so on the second line, we're going to do a seed bead for, second line, no seed bead. 3 pearls, and then a center, and then 3 pearls. So let's get that on. And I probably shouldn't have picked pearls for this project again, because they can be tricky to get your cord through the hole. So this might take a little bit longer. This is definitely not one of those sit down and get it done in 20 minutes kind of project. So you do want to make sure you've given yourself some time. So we've got 3. And then this small spacer. And then 3 more. Now, since this is a 5 spacer bar, if you don't like the dangles, you can always put another row of beads on instead. So do keep that in mind. Although if you decide to do an extra row of beads, and then you have and then you want to put the dangles on, you're going to find that you're really crowding into that bottom hole. So just be aware of that. And then this is the third line, and it would getting ahead of myself trying to put beads on before it's even through the spacer. So there we go. So the third line, remember this is going to curve. So we're going to make each line just a millimeter bigger than the one before it. So this one, remember we didn't have a seed bead before or after. This one I am. And that's going to add just 2 millimeters to the length and allow it to give it that curve. So I'm going to do a seed bead first, then my 3 beads in a spacer, 3 beads and a seed bead. I don't know why I'm picking these up. You know, usually I poke them with the wire and it finds the hole. Well, of course, the first one right on. This is one of those projects I normally put the tunes on and then just get into bead zone. And then again finish this one with a seed bead. So it's going to be slightly longer. And then the size 6, we're just going to do 2 in a spacer and 2. But these ones also have that seed bead before and after. And you know, I did it again. Let's go through the bar. So 2 of our 6 millimeter rounds. And did I do the seed bead first? No. Okay, let me take that right back off. There's 1 and 2. And a big spacer, because these are bigger beads. Seed bead. And there we go. That's our first section. And it looks like our spacing is just right. with that 18. Again, I want it to be slightly shorter than the others, so you can see this slight graduation to get longer, which is exactly what we want to see. So it'll make a nice curve rather than, because this isn't flat. If this was going to be a bracelet, then absolutely you would want each one to be exactly the same. So I would cut out the seed beads here, but the seed beads are going to add on the lines, add just that little bit of space to allow it to give it a nice curve, so I don't get the wave when it's on. Now I can move these tools out of the way though, to give us a little bit more space. Okay, and we can go ahead and put our next spacer bar on. Move that down, make sure where all the lines were put on correctly, that nobody crossed over, and there you go. See, so isn't that going to be lovely just with pearls? I just love the sheen of pearls. There's just nothing like it. Okay, so we're going to continue that until we have 5 bars going this way and then 5 going this way. So let's just keep this going. There we go, 18. And this is the first line, so we're not putting those seed beads on first. Wow, apparently we're not putting these on either. Come on. Broke my glasses. I just wear reading glasses, but I broke them last night, and so I'm wearing my backups, and it's not quite as magnified. So these holes don't appear as clear as they should. At least that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it, god darn it. When it comes to these pearls, I just love them, but gosh, they can be a challenge. Okay, and then third line, that's the fourth. So this one we're going to do the seed bead first to make it just a little bit longer. And then the purple line. And another spacer. Now you might be wondering, can you go ahead and do one whole line first and then go to the next one and the next one? You certainly can. I find that I've got more room to work if I do each section at a time rather than line. If you do them as one line each and put the spacer on, and then the next section and put the spacer on, and get that whole line done first, what happens is then you're picking it up as you do the second, third, and fourth line. You're picking it up, so you're going to need to keep this end on a bead stopper as well, so you're not losing your beads. I just think you have more room to work, and it's easier if you do each section at a time and then add the spacer. Some of these, you know, they've all got holes because they were on a string, but good grief, some are tough to find. Gosh sakes. I keep dropping these, I'm not going to have enough to finish it. Good grief. Okay, so we've got that side done. I'm going to take the bead stopper off at this end. Now these bead stoppers are great. They don't put kinks in your wire, so you'll never know where you put it as far as your beads are concerned, but they sure keep your project from falling off the end if you ever need to get up, take a break or whatever. You're not going to lose it. 2, 3, 4, 5, and I should have 5 spacers left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Excellent. I don't think there's anything more discouraging than getting up, and of course it's going to be attached to you. It's just like, how come you drop beads so much? And it just keeps everything from falling off. What a lifesaver they are. Okay, so we're just going to do the same thing on the other side exactly, and then we'll go for those ends. Okay, so that was the last one. Now we can put the final dangle on and spacer. First, we're going to see how close to the center we are. Okay, so it looks like we definitely need to come down a bit. Just evening out the wires here so I have the same length on both sides to put the ends on. So let's see how that looks. That's pretty even. Okay, so now that we've gotten this far, we've got all of our beads on, we're nicely centered. Now we're going to reduce our amount of cable lines down so we can make the back part. Okay, so to do that, we've got different spacers for that. So I've got some 3mm rounds and some 6mm rounds. And the reason I'm going to use these is because my larger rounds are going to have large enough holes that they will cover up my crimp, and I can go ahead and crimp them and cut them off. So I need 6 3mm rounds for each side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go, 6. And then I need 3 large silver beads for each side. We need 6 of these. There's that 3, well 4, and 3, 4. Okay, so let me give you a comparison. These are the 6mm beads, and look at the hole size on that. I mean, that's massive compared to, remember the pearls I kept dropping? Look at the difference in the hole size. There is no way that's going to cover up a crimp, but this sure will. And it'll just make it disappear like magic. No one will know how you finished it, which is awesome. I like tricks. So for this, we're going to start off putting a size 3 on each cable end. For heaven's sakes. Go on. There it goes. and then we're going to pick up 2 lines and then separate out those and put another 3 millimeter on there. So you end up with a little picot or a tiny triangle. And if I can get this one on, there's the hole. There we go. And one more on here. Then we'll do the same thing to this side. So one on each line. And now that third one on each pair. Does not want to go on. Here we go. There we go. Okay, and do you see how it just stacked those? So now we went from 4 lines to just 2, which is pretty awesome. Okay, so now we're going to put crimps on these and tighten up, and then our larger rounds will just fit right over that crimp and cover it right up. So let me grab some of those. This is easier. Okay, so we're going to get a crimp on each pair here, pair of lines. And you see our wire is really uneven at the ends, because remember we started out every line was the same length, and of course now we've graduated the sizing in here to allow it to make this curve, and because of that this inside line is shorter, and so it's going to have a longer cable. And then of course, as far as that goes, the outside line is the longest, and so it's going to have the shortest one. Okay, and then just for safety's sake, because again I don't want to pick this up and then have all of it fall apart, I'm going to put my bead stopper on this end right next to those crimps, so I can crimp this end without worrying about losing all of my spacing. And you really don't want to pull this tight. If you do, it's going to make it ruffle. You want to keep it nice and loose so it just has that really beautiful lay to it without getting all wrinkled and too tight and all of that. So I'm just lifting it up so the beads will naturally fall down. And then I'm going to crimp both of these. So grab my crimp plier. Well, there's my wire cutter, my chain nose, my round nose, and snippers, and another chain nose. Okay, so let's go ahead and get both of these crimped. Side. Okay, and then each side is now going to get its own big round that's going to go down and cover up that crimp, and you won't even see it. Be smarter than the bead, for heaven's sakes. Here it goes. And do you see how it's just going to go down? I don't know if you just caught that, but see, here's our bead. I'm going to take these out of the way. And look at that. It just covers the crimp right up. You don't see it. You wouldn't know it was there. However, I am going to take a step before I put this on top of there, because I'm going to be cutting off the two of these lines, and you don't know which two that's going to be until we actually get the third one on, and then I'll cut off the two shortest ones. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on top of the crimps. So when I move that bead on top of it, see, I'm just using the super glue. This is the Loctite super glue gel. I'm going to slide this over, and now it's going to glue this bead into place. I think I got a little carried away with the glue there, right there. It'll just glue the bead into place, so if for some reason the crimps decide to loosen up on the lines because it is just two thin lines in there without being buried under any beads, I don't want them to go anywhere. So we'll just give those a minute to cure, and we'll go ahead and crimp this side. And same thing, we're just going to bring the bead down. Where you've got your little triangle of 3 there. And I don't know if you saw that, I just tightened one of the cables to really let that 3rd bead sit nicely on top. And then we'll do the same thing with this side. And again, I really don't want to pull too tightly and make it so tight that it ripples on me. So I just want it snug. And then there we go. Get this one crimped. And then we can put the larger bead on. And again, just a drop of glue. Oops, that one wants to cover it up already. On each crimp, and then push the bead over. Okay, now this one will be dry already because it's super glue. And let's go ahead and feed one of these large hole beads over all 4 lines. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the last crimp. So there's 1 and 2. Okay, so on these ones, we're going to put a crimp on all 4 lines. There we go. And bring it down. And again, you just don't want to make that too tight. It is going to be covered up, but you sure want to make sure it's grabbing all 4 lines. Give that a super good squeeze. And then this one can come on. We just covered up that crimp. Now I can cut off 2 of these lines, so I'm not working with all 4 to get the end on. That one slipped out. Okay, so bring that down. And again, not too tight. There we go. Got that crimped on nice and tight. And our last big guy. Oh, my fingers are sticking together. I must have gotten some of that glue on me. all these different lengths of the cable makes that a little bit of a challenge. There we go. Okay, so now we want to cut the two shortest out of each one so we can put the ends on. Looks like these have, those two are both pretty even. So I'm going to cut these two off. Remember, we just crimped it, so I can just cut those off and be done with them. And I've only got the two lines. And then same thing on this side. We're going to cut off the two shortest ones. And now I can just add my ending beads and my toggle clasp, and we are done. This is so much fun. Okay, so I do need to get some beads ready for that. And I am going to add a big guy first. Just because I had that whole string, so I might as well use up a couple more. These are the size 8s that we put into the dangles. And so I'm just going to start with one of those. Or we could actually end with all of these, because we really don't need to make this a whole lot longer, and I need room to put on the clasp. So let's do and 1, 2, 3. We're just going to kind of repeat what the pattern that we have there. So we're going to do 2 of the 8mm pearls, and then the large spacer, and then 2 more of the 8mm pearls. And then a seed bead, just to bring them together. We'll make it match on this side. And a spacer. And then because I'm using a toggle clasp, and I'd like to have a smaller bead next to it because it makes it so much easier to close the toggle clasp, I'm also going to put one of the smaller, the 6mm there. So did I put a seed bead on that end? No. So let's do that. hung up in there on that second line. Let's trim this. Let's see if that'll help. You know what, that still isn't going on, so I'm going to grab 2 more of these larger rounds. Since we have it started there, we can end there. Crimps. Let's see, I've got 1 here. Let's grab 1 more. And my toggle clasp. Let me figure out what I did with that. Here we go. This is from the Tiara cast line. Really a nice, super high quality grade pewter that just anyone can wear, and it's comfortable and it's not going to break you out. Just a nice simple design in this nice bright silver so it matches. So let's do a crimp. Toggle arm. And I was afraid of that. You know, we use these large holed beads to cover up the crimp, so my crimp just went inside of it. So that's going to get frustrating. I'm going to take that off and rethink that. Oh, I see. I had a seed bead at the end, not a crimp. Well, that could be part of the problem. Let's see if that'll do. Let's just go with a smaller ring and then a crimp tube. I said ring, I meant spacer. The smaller spacers that were in between the 4mm pearls is what I put there. And then the arm. And there we go, that won't swallow up my crimp tube. I wasn't kidding when I said pearls have the smallest hole, and that is proving to be so. I'm just going to shorten this one and not have a whole lot of tail buried. I've got enough line here that that's going to be a really nice tight hold on the crimp. So I'm going to go ahead and crimp you off. And then when I'm using toggles, I really leave more room against the eye of the toggle than I do when I'm using like a lobster clasp, because that arm really has to be able to bend and get into the other half. Let me test that. Yep, that's nice and tight. So I can cut that off. I really prefer to leave an end. In this case, I am not going to fight those pearls. And so let's do this end. So I'm going to take that off. And that little seed bead, put a small spacer and crimp tube. Thought I got an extra. Grab those tails and get this side crimped. Now you can put crimp covers over here. It would just be a small little ball at the end. Again, I don't really like to have those right next to my skin, so that's not normally a step I'll take. But gosh, feel free if you like the looks of that. I really love the looks of that. I just can't wear it. And there we go. So we now have our green and purple pearl multi-line with the reduction. This is going to be a little closer and up near my collar. That'll be super fun to wear. And we are done. So again, please feel free to use whatever colors you are in love with. You just can't go wrong with just about any combination. Looks fantastic. You've got that beautiful sheen. Again, that's the sheen of pearls, or you can have the super blam of a just faceted glass, and you get that lovely sparkle, or with the just big and bold beads. Don't be afraid to go bigger or smaller. That there are so many combinations that you can do. That what a fun project. Does take a little bit of time, so make sure you've got a couple 3 hours set aside to put this one together. Really the biggest thing is just be careful with your tension so you don't get the lines too tight, and then they'll have a tendency to wave on you instead of being nice and flat like this. Alrighty, so gosh, have a great day, good beading to you, and we'll see you later.